Led Zeppelin is my favorite band, so that was fun. So I'll tell you this, my most anticipated watch from Rolex this year is the Milgauss. That's not saying much. I mean, it's not exactly an A-tier watch. It's more like a C or a D tier in the sports category, because I see there's so much potential for this collection to expand, and that's what I want this video to be based on. Is it likely that we will see it return? Yes. Equally, it's just as unlikely that we will see it ever come back. Why? Because the name Milgauss has been redundant since, I don't know, 1960. Just like Rolex's Air King, it's a model line that really doesn't need to be there. But in the same breath, the brand could use this moment to flex their creative muscles, to re-establish the Milgauss as an entirely different property, something a bit more youthful and exciting. So let's talk predictions, me sharing some ideas and concepts of what the next generation might look like, believable ones at that, and there is great opportunity here for the brand to capitalize on, so let's have a look. Most of us here know the origin story of the Milgauss. Following the success of the Chronograph, Rolex decided to elaborate on this concept and create a handful of professional-oriented models, which later became the Submariner, the GMT Master, and the Milgauss, the 6541. Now, this reference in particular is one of the most beautiful sports watches ever created, and naturally it's also become one of the most collectible vintage Rolexes ever. Once we hit the 1950s, we started experiencing a lot more with space-age elements and things, and magnetism, for all its perks, is also quite a bane of our existence, and engineers and scientists needed a watch. But there were far more successful watches in this field, and the iron inner cage had been used for a long time before then. Some of you might not know this, but pilot watches, even as far back as the 40s and the 30s, used inner cages to protect their movements from magnetism inside plane cockpits. So this sort of technology wasn't exactly new in the 50s, and because of that, Rolex didn't really get off the ground with the Milgauss. Through its life, it was never at the top, it was never the popular watch, and even today we could say the same thing. I mean, the modern Milgauss, as it stands, probably has seen the most popularity in its existence when it was discontinued in 2023. Just because it's now scarce, because you can't get it at retail, so the interest in it has climbed up. But historically, it had sales figures equal to or less than the Rolex Daytona of its time, which in layman's terms means basically non-existent. And this is another thing I love, is that the Milgauss used to be the giveaway watch. The watch that if you won an event, it would be handed to you for free. So naturally, the earlier references are harder to find because they didn't produce too many to begin with, as well as the fact that a lot of them were used for their intended purposes, so they were obliterated over time, which ultimately makes the earlier models in great condition that much more special to find. And this is the most impressive thing about this collection, is that Rolex could have, or most would say should have, binned this range a long time ago. It has been through at least 3 separate evolutionary phases, and even still, it is not the popular watch. But then again, its name is something special. It is, pun intended, a lightning in a bottle sort of name. Milgauss. And how that name links with the presence of this piece as an instrument, as a tool, dare I say. There are so many options for where this collection might go. So look, the less exciting choice is that this collection is gone forever. The Milgauss name is history. And we can understand why, I guess. Because, well, we don't need anti-magnetic watches, or engineers' watches for that matter. Most sports watches fall into that professional category as it is, and most modern watches with a good reputation come standard with a high anti-magnetic rating, thanks to things like silicon balance springs. But then the more exciting news is that we see the Milgauss return, revamped with a fresh new look. Just for a second, imagine, this has just come to me, that to compete with the integrated bracelet craze that has now been and gone, going up against one of their prime rivals in this field, like the IWC Ingenieur, Rolex decides to follow suit and create an anti-magnetic watch incorporating elements from the oyster quartz, integrated bracelet, all those hard edges. That would be so cool to see. The funny thing is that the Air King and the Milgauss in the modern collection have always been linked. Both are some of the least popular sports pieces in the sports category, but also 2 model lines that share parts between one another. It's better to be less popular together, right? It's a collaborative exercise. But with the Milgauss now gone, and the Air King returning a year previous with a new case, an improved bracelet clasp system, a better dial arrangement, and let's not forget crown guards, to me it feels like a no-brainer. So the next generation Milgauss, what would be the ideal watch for the enthusiasts in us? I guess it would have to be a hybrid between a Submariner and an Oyster Perpetual. You know, to reintroduce that turnograph style. That's something a lot of us have been clamoring for. Now, I would like to think I'm pretty good at making renders and concepts, but there is no better place on the internet to find this exact watch than Monochrome watches. I think it's a concept they put together about 4 years ago now, and even to this day it still stands. In my eyes, I see it as perfect, and that is exactly why Rolex would never let a watch like this see the light of day. It is a brand that actually does look into their back catalogue, but they would never be so literal as this. The next great return would be the sleeper reference 1019, one of the most beautiful dial and handset arrangements on any Rolex. Less being more is the name of the game with a piece like this. Red accents in all the right places. But then again, it looks like an Oyster Perpetual and doesn't have any standout traits. And this is sort of why I believe the modern generation came to be as a more playful looking series. Spot colors, faux lume accents, and of course we can't forget the zirconium blue dial. And I always like to refer back to previous generations of this watch because we can see the puzzle pieces arranged and ready to be assembled. And after all of that, here are a few of my predictions and renders. First thoughts, most unbelievable. They put a Milgauss dial in a Submariner or a Yachtmaster case. It could work, but it also wouldn't really communicate Milgauss so much as a hybrid of some kind. I do really like seeing this dial and what it looks like in a Yachtmaster titanium shell though. There is something to be said about the Milgauss in a titanium case that's very appealing, and I don't think we should discount it just yet. And if we're speaking about dials, I tell you, when you look closely at it, the Milgauss dial in its current configuration is perfect. Simple, balanced, great use of typeface, and symmetrical. And of course, to recognize it from a distance, you have an accent color on the lightning bolt seconds hand. Yes, we could say it looks very childish, but believe it or not, it is a detail that has come to define this watch from the very beginning. If anything, the lightning bolt hand is its primary characteristic, if all else fails. So the obvious route that Rolex would take, using the Air King case for this collection, try and say that 3 times, but slotting in a modernized, a more refined Milgauss dial. Now maybe it's just me, and I don't know if it sounds boring, but I really like the simplicity of this. Creatively, they can go to town with accent colors and make them the heroes of the collection. You know, I'm thinking Rosso Red, bright red accents similar to Sea Dwellers and other models that have played with it before. Also calling back to its original color scheme of the 1019 and the 6541, 6542. How about an electric blue or a lime green, or my personal favorite, a bright yellow? I think more than just bringing back a collection for the sake of it, the primary focus is about giving it a new lease on life. And for that younger professional, maybe someone who wants some bright colors, but not have it dominate the watch dial, this could be the perfect opportunity. The irony is that this inspiration came from my favorite Omega Aquaterra, the greater than 15,000 Gauss, and I'm sure you can see the similarities. Of course, from here, using these templates, white dial, black dial, there's tons of opportunity. How about a sun-brushed black dial or a grey anthracite dial with these accents instead? And then to top it off, I highly doubt, after all the research and development that went into the green crystal, the orange accents on the dial, as well as the zirconium blue, that the Z Blue would be discontinued entirely. They can't remove this watch, especially with an Air King case. I think it looks fantastic. All of that said, yes, it is very likely that the Milgauss is gone for good. It is historic, it has served its purpose. Sports watches are practically amagnetic today. So the technology required within a cages and all of that is not exactly necessary. But there is also hope, because if the new Air King sales are not as high as they should be, introducing a newly refreshed Milgauss could fit into the new case with crown guards nicely. From this launch, we could see a more youthful take on the collection. There might be a harmonious range of models unified by accent colors or just a simple black and white dial option. But the hero of the range will be the Z Blue. I think it's a piece that deserves to stay. And I think we would all find it quite disappointing if the colorway goes. So there are a few samples of what I think the next generation Milgauss could look like, why I think it could be very exciting because of its simplicity and minimalism, harkening back to the 1019 and earlier models. But now at the same time appearing all the more professional with its new case. And ironically, how the previous generation Milgauss saved the Air King, so this generation Air King is going to uplift the Milgauss. There's poetry in there, it rhymes. I want to know your thoughts on this piece. What do you reckon the next generation Milgauss could look like? If my idea is worthy, if it's going to be likely or possible, or if this collection is gone and won't return. Who knows? As a creative person in my shoes, you have to be optimistic that you're going to see something greater than or equal to what you produce. So we just have to wait and see. And until then, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.